service continually. He rules the liberty. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the dam. And the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace, and passed the night fasting. Neither was instruments of music.
CHU Canada, UTC, 8 heures, 53 minutes. 8 hours, 53 minutes. CHU Canada, Coordinated Universal Time, 8 hours, 54 minutes. 8 heures, 54 minutes.
If you're in India or anywhere in Southwest Asia, you can have that song 1370 200 hours and 300 hours UTC. Or this is Brent. I'm Rod Stewart. Join us again tomorrow for your new life stations in the shower. We leave you with this and sway.
So makes this clear to us. In fact, as they ministered to the Lord and fasted, the Holy Ghost said, broadcasting on internationally allocated standard carrier frequencies of 2.5, 5, 10, and 15 megahertz, providing time of day, standard time intervals, and unrelated information. Inquiries regarding these transmissions may be directed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, radio station WWVH, Post Office Box 417, Chicago, Hawaii. 96752. Aloha. At the tone, 9 hours, 0 minutes, coordinated universal time.
At the tone, 9 hours, 0 minutes, coordinated universal time. National Institute of Standards and Technology time. This is radio station WWV, Fort Collins, Colorado, broadcasting on internationally allocated standard carrier frequencies of 2.5, 5, 10, 15, and 20 megahertz, providing time of day, standard time intervals, and other related information. Inquiries regarding these transmissions may be directed to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, radio station WWV, 2000 East County Road 58, Fort Collins, Colorado, 80524.
At the time, 9 hours, 1 minute, coordinated universal time.
At the time, 9 hours, 1 minute, coordinated universal time.
Of Asia.
A person has died after a crash on State Highway 1 near Dunedin. The police were called to the two-vehicle crash in Allenton just before 20 to 6. One person died at the scene and 2 others sustained minor injuries. And in Super Rugby tonight, the Crusaders have crushed the Hurricanes under the roof of their new stadium, Te Kaha. Though the two sides may meet again in 2026, it's a significant psychological blow for the Southern team ahead of the playoffs. In the final round of the regular season, the Crusaders celebrated Severe's century of games with a commanding 47-14 win. The win leaves the side third on the table. The Blues now need a win in Hamilton to gain hometown advantage next weekend. And that's the news.
This Sunday morning, actor Madeline Sally hosts the new series of Traitors on TV. She's with us. So is Noelle McCarthy, whose first book, Grand, was prize-winning. Her new memoir is called State, because she invites Dracula into it. Another book to talk about is by Lindsay Simpson, Age Rebellion. Lindsay says never retire. She's turning that advice into a movement. And Jack Wackling is back with us, analysing the conflict situations in Iran and Ukraine. It's Sunday morning from 8 o'clock on RNZ National.
This is RNZ National. We're on air on rnz.co.nz and also on your TV. You'll find us on Freeview Channel 50. Back with Emile in just a moment for more from night's first, though, the short forecast from their service until midnight tomorrow. Northland, Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula and Bay of Plenty. Partly cloudy with isolated showers. The remainder of the North Island mainly fine. Areas of cloud or fog clearing tomorrow morning with isolated showers developing from Waikato to Taranaki tomorrow afternoon. Marlborough and Nelson mainly fine. Cloud increasing and isolated showers developing about Nelson and northern Marlborough tomorrow afternoon. Buller to Fiordland mainly fine. Drizzle developing about the fjords overnight. Cloud increasing elsewhere tomorrow afternoon and isolated showers developing and then turning to rain about Fiordland and Westland after dark. For Canterbury, Otago and Southland, mainly fine. Areas of low cloud or fog clearing tomorrow morning. High cloud increasing later with the chance of a shower in Otago and Southland at night. In the Chatham Islands, cloudy periods, a few showers clearing overnight. We will have a full roundup of the day's main stories in our next news and weather at 10 o'clock. This is RNZ National. It is 9:06.
厨房里边呢，就有一味麻香的小调料，它能刺激人们边努力打拼而食欲下降的味蕾，而且呢，还以其独特的清香味儿，能够不断的刺激我们的大脑，释放出内啡肽，以轻微刺激的方式帮助我们解压，并且达到一种特殊的兴奋。那么这个麻香的小调料是什么呢？就是今天我要给大家讲解的小花椒。小花椒还是性价比超高的调味料。为什么在古代只是皇宫皇室的人可以享用，而普通百姓却无法入京的呢？我们要从小花椒之名谈起。小花椒是大禹治水密切相关的。传说在洪水泛滥的年代，大禹率领着千军万马治理了洪水。在治水大军当中，有一位老郎中。这个郎中呢，带着一个13、14岁的小孙女，名叫花椒。她聪明伶俐，特别有理解。有一年，小花椒她有一个特别好的闺蜜，不幸得了眼病。花椒姑娘和她的爷爷就把这个闺蜜的眼病治好了。就在治水大军准备出征的时候，当地的人很多都患了眼病。花椒姑娘看在眼里，疼在心上，她就跟爷爷说，她想留下来医治这些得了眼病的人们。但是花椒爷爷认为花椒姑娘人小体弱，怕是吃不消，所以没有同意。但是呢，花椒姑娘就向大禹师傅来求情。大禹看到花椒姑娘虽然胆小，但是有一颗仁爱之心，因此他就出了一些题来考花椒姑娘。花椒姑娘都是对答如流，大禹又出了一些备案，又找一些病人让花椒姑娘来参验一把。花椒姑娘都是善于吐哺，花椒姑娘的爷爷甚是高兴。这样呢，大禹就说服了花椒的爷爷，让花椒姑娘留下来，送走了治水大军和爷爷。花椒姑娘就像往常一样，背着小药箱走东家看西家，哪家有病去哪家，治好了很多人的眼病。但是由于当地呢湿热气候比较糜烂，湿气特别的大，人们得眼病的越来越多。花椒姑娘看到此情此景，就想了一个办法。Solar turtle 20 follow. Solar 21 the estimated planetary radius of 13. The estimated planetary index of the night will also be on May 29th at 2:33. Northeast weather storms occurred for the past 24 hours. Northeast weather storms are predicted for the next 24 hours.
multiple times, forced to live with host families and in displacement camps. So all of these factors have really compounded, putting a huge strain on what is already very, very limited resources, including access to water, food security, and healthcare services.
David, it's a huge country. Tell us about the areas that are worst affected.
The worst affected area is the epicenter. It's a province called Ituri up in the northeast of the country. It borders South Sudan and Uganda. And part of the reason it spread so far and so quickly is that it's on a main commercial corridor that also leads down into the southeast of the country, but also east into Uganda as well. And that's why we've had confirmed cases there. Now, we're talking a huge, huge country in terms of population as well as scale of the territory. There are about 5 million people living in Ituri, so it's a similar scale to Ireland. And just further south in North Kivu, where confirmed cases have started picking up, and where we have over 100 of our staff, there's about 7 million people there, including a major city called Goma, where we've already had a confirmed case, which is equivalent size to Dublin. So we're talking about a very populous, vibrant, dynamic, mobile population, which is part of the reason this has spread so far and so quickly.
As you mentioned, it's the 17th outbreak of the virus in the DRC. There is experience, as you said, too, of dealing with it and containing the virus. Will that be enough this time?
It definitely helps. Whether it will be enough, we'll have to see. So this is one of 6 species of what is called the ortho-Ebola virus. The particular one, Bundibugyo, has only been seen twice before. So in 2007, 2012. Now, because of its rarity, it's a lot harder to detect, and there are no approved vaccines. So whilst there is very strong experience in the area to deal with this type of outbreak in Ebola, but also other ones such as cholera and COVID, and as concerned, we've been responding to these outbreaks for years ourselves. So we do have this ingrained expertise and strength to be able to respond. However, in this particular case, the early symptoms are actually very much interchangeable with those of other very frequently seen diseases such as malaria, dengue fever, even the flu. And I think that's really contributed to some of the delayed identification of the outbreak specifically, and obviously then how far that spread.
Do people believe health authorities? Do they accept that there is a deadly virus spreading in the country?
There is a huge complication in terms of community acceptance of what's happening and how it's being responded to. As I mentioned, it's a very sort of vibrant, mobile population. It's incredibly diverse.
What's happening with the primary care in New York is how much does the separate incentive just completely undo or distract from everything we do and build services in the Canadian economy and build investment. And I'm curious to hear if you get any of that feedback in the United States or if they don't see the same.
Yeah, who knows where that will go quickly among financial players and investors. Laura, as I look, though, at the Prime Minister's comments, as I see them in front of me, and I've heard them, we all did a few moments ago, I'm more in the way of word ruling. Mark kind of sounded a bit like Doug Ford when he goes out ruling America. Any similarities there?
Well, they both fly private, so
We're not that still off anymore.
we're
not over that.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because they do and they don't. I mean, Ford also goes on CNN and rips into Donald Trump, and Mark Carney goes to Davos and makes some not so subtle jabs at the president and stands strong. So I think it depends on the audience. Clearly he's trying to speak the president's language today, literally, and in a city where Trump has a strong presence. I'm not sure that that's a Trump-friendly audience so much as kind of a Carney-friendly audience. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of tried to play all sides at this point, right? He's tried to say we've made the deal with China, which we talked about too in the Q&A today from that most of the coming into Canada now, no tariffs will be applied. Not to anger the U.S. He gave the Davos speech, which was a worldwide phenomenon. Now he's sort of trying to play the friendlier approach. So I think it just speaks to the challenge that Canadians have and how to address this relationship, right? The Prime Minister really thinks Canada's needs to go better and better and not worrying about it, but I think there's also that.
Now, when Trump began it, it stayed for 1 week on the top chart and then setting a record at the time as the only song to reach number one again 2 years later in 1962. Amazing stuff. Chubby Checker with the twist. Hold on, I have so many multi-platinum singles coming your way. It's amazing, and all of them inspired their own dance. Coming up on OTH Radio. Looking for a marine radio? ICOM's marine radios have a reputation for being rugged, reliable, innovative, and award-winning. Whether you need a handheld, fixed mount, or radar, we have an onboard solution that's right for you. In a world where marine technology constantly evolves, ICOM stands the test of time with leading-edge forward thinking. Boaters worldwide choose ICOM to navigate the seas with ease. ICOM, bring it on. If it's about radio, you can be certain ICOM has a product for it. Calling all hands, whether in your ham shack or out in the field, ICOM has a base station, mobile, or handheld option that will please any amateur enthusiast. There's little left to be desired with features like D-Star, upper and lower sideband, CW, radio teletype, including a radio teletype decoder, AM, FM, satellite operation, and more. Hams worldwide choose ICOM for their legendary durability, quality, dependability, and ease of use. ICOM for the love of ham radio.
WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida, USA.
If it has to do with radio, you can be certain ICOM has a product for you. Flexible and network-free coverage where you need it most. Over 4G, a wireless network, or Iridium's global constellation of satellites. Our LTE, WLAN, and satellite radios keep you connected, whether you're on the road, in the backcountry, or at the office. Need more connections? Expand your network with our Connect ROIP gateway for ultimate coverage. ICOM, Connect Solutions.
And greatest hits on Earth. OTH Radio.
CHU, Canada. Coordinated Universal Time, 9 hours, 32 minutes. River of Belize.
north, 120 west. Is that correct? How long is this frequency in Kenwood? That's the report exit. Report exit on 11279.
looking at and keep balance for the simply published report. How people carry out that society, which is a question of ethics about
Other Community Watch outputs. Meanwhile, the Ministry for Pacific Peoples has seen further cuts. Atiriano Matiariki has more.
$8.3 million will be shared amongst Pacifica wardens along with neighbourhood support and community patrols over the next 4 years. But Auckland Councillor Al Filipino, who helped set the trust up, doesn't know what benefits the new funding will bring. Auckland will be, I think, they'll be asking themselves, well, I hope this budget doesn't give the announcement in Budget 2025 from the minister that has $1 million in there. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Pacific Peoples has been lined up for a 2% funding cut, along with a number of other ministries. Ministry head Geraldine Clifford Midstone says the funding cuts were always expected. Her statement has been voiced. The ministry was not invited to bid for new funding and directed to make the baseline reductions. Current work programs remain unchanged as funding continues for key initiatives. Our focus remains firmly on delivering outcomes in the areas Pacific Peoples have told us matter most: housing, education, health, economic growth, and Pacific languages. Half is a big winner in this budget, with around $5.8 billion in new spending. Sir Colin Tweeter, a Pacific Public Health expert, says it's good news, but there is nothing targeted for Pacifica.
Clearly the government is recognizing that health needs a lot of help, but it's universal, it's for everyone. There isn't any targeted spend for Pacific communities.
Education, another winner in the budget, saw $1.5 billion in new spending. This caught the attention of Aroha Armstrong, Chief Executive for Tuputura, which support Māori and Pacific tertiary graduates. She says a turbulent job market is leaving students discombobulated.
So the most important thing we can look at what are those pathways to our people's seasons? How do we get them these pathways? And it's not just entry level that we need to be thinking about there. New Zealand, when we're talking about workforce shortages, we're talking about the future, whether you like it or not. I mean, Pacific are the fastest growing part of New Zealand's workforce.
Armstrong says the doubling in trade academies is good to see, but she says without consistent targeted investment for Māori and Pacifica, Aotearoa suffer.
Still on the budget, the government will spend $1.2 billion on foreign aid this coming fiscal year. And aid experts says it's a positive signal and a road where aid cuts are becoming the norm. Kaya Selby has more.
Aotearoa's foreign ministry was one of the big winners in yesterday's budget. It secures $275 million in new funding, $110 million of which will go towards supporting the Indo-Pacific region exclusively. As for this year, aid spending is on the up, which development expert Terence Wood says is a welcome surprise.
The trend somewhat, and I don't know what that reflects, whether it's Winston Peters writing, for his turf, or whether it's just a recognition of the fact that Pacific countries are struggling right now, with the fuel crisis, or whether there's something else like the perceived need to stave off China's impact in the Pacific. It's a surprise, right?
Before this year, Wood says aid was trending down, just like most of the developed world right now.
Be it budgetary, simple budgets for fuel, or whatever they're doing, you would imagine, right, that won't be the sole thing that aid has been spent on, but it'll be something that people are thinking about pretty carefully. There is this rising need in the Pacific, and there is a partner wheel to help.
Australia announced its aid budget earlier this month, which left aid spending mostly untouched, despite rising inflation. Wood says it makes Aotearoa look much better in comparison.
So Australian aid is going up in a nominal sense, but falling in an inflation-adjusted sense. At least based on what Treasury is projecting, our aid is going up nominally. It's also going up in an inflation-adjusted sense, although that is based on the assumption that inflation won't be that high in the next financial year, which is not that realistic, I think.
But one important thing was missing this year: climate financing. The Treasury has pointed to an unfunded commitment as a specific fiscal risk. That commitment as much as $500 million. But Wood says this does
was not surprising because under the current government, the measure itself has become redundant.
Money that we give to developing countries to either mitigate their own emissions or adapt to the effects of climate change all comes out of our aid budget. Anyhow, there was a time under Labour where aid budget was increasing to incorporate rising climate finance spend. However, that stopped. And so any changes in nominal climate finance for developing countries, they're kind of a fiction anyhow.
Budget 2026 did not reveal the recipients of this year's aid budget. The impact says the Pacific will be the enduring priority.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. For myself and the RNZ Pacific team, so far, Swifty. RNZ News at 10. Kia ora, good evening. I'm Alison Levy. The top economists have cast doubt over the government's forecast to return to surplus. The budget yesterday projected a surplus would be reached in 2028-29, a year earlier than expected. Political reporter Lauren Crimp has more. Before the finance minister took the mic at this morning's ANZ post-budget breakfast, the bank's chief economist, Sharon Zollner, dished out her take. Not at all clear that the forecast surplus will happen. That the forecast for the economy beyond even 3 months, I would say, are uncertain, but certainly 4 or 5 years out, anything could happen. Nicola Willis told the crowd she agrees, saying no one can predict what Donald Trump or Iran's leaders will do. That's partly why the government has been so prudent in the budget about a range of measures, including setting aside those funds for future fuel responses if needed, because we know the uncertainty. I don't know what decisions Donald Trump will be making over these next few weeks, and they will have an impact on New Zealand. But she also noted a surplus could be achieved even in Treasury's downside scenario. The Prime Minister is defending a lack of relief from the cost of living in the budget. The budget instead focused on core health and infrastructure spending, as well as a near $500 million rainy day fund tagged to the fuel crisis. Speaking to media in Auckland, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon believes voters understand the big picture.
The most important thing to help with the cost of living is to have wages going up higher than prices. That's the difference. That's what I was talking to about Mayor Marks, and that's really what this government can do the best in order to help people through the cost of living challenges they're experiencing.
Christopher Luxon says the government is trying to manage issues in a calm and deliberate way. US Vice President J.D. Vance says Washington and Tehran are very close to agreeing an extension of their ceasefire, but there are still sticking points. The BBC's Sarah Smith reports. J.D. Vance has alleged a senior member of the Trump administration to express optimism about the possibility of the US and Iran agreeing some kind of deal sometime soon. Asked by the BBC if President Trump was close to signing a deal, Mr. Vance said it was too early to say when or if the two sides would finalize the agreement. US officials had earlier confirmed that both countries had agreed the framework of a deal, but said it was yet to be approved by Iran's leadership or to be signed off by Donald Trump. The plan that's under discussion is not a final peace deal. Instead, it is a memorandum of understanding that would extend the current ceasefire by 60 days and allow for more substantive negotiations to begin. A fall in petrol prices this month has lifted consumer confidence, but it still remains deeply negative overall. The ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence Survey rose by 6 points to 86.5 in May. A rating under 100 shows pessimism. The number of people thinking it's a good time to buy a big-ticket item, a key indicator for retailers, improved slightly to 20%. Wellington consumers have the lowest confidence in the country, while South Island consumers outside Canterbury are showing the highest levels. The chief economist for the New Zealand Initiative think tank believes superannuation changes will be on the election agenda. Finance Minister Nicola Willis warned yesterday that any party that ignores the size of the problem is doing so for its own benefit. New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters said her comments were an unfortunate mistake. Eric Crampton says the cost of super will need to be dealt with.
Treasury has been increasingly emphatic that failure to attend to the rising cost of super is going to cause cost blowouts through the 2030s and 2040s. Minister Willis was clear that we are already at the start of that, and there are substantial effects.
Eric Crampton says an easy way to manage it would be to change the method of indexation, matching it to inflation. A Canterbury man behind the country's biggest illegal lottery has avoided jail, but his sentence is still undecided. Waiariki McElroy Jones and his company, Jones LRC Limited, were due to be sentenced at the Christchurch District Court today for running online lotteries that brought in more than $11 million. Timothy Brown reports. Judge Raoul Neve today. 4月は石油の国家リスクの放出で需要を賄っていた。5月は代替調達が進み、輸入量は回復傾向になると見込んでいると述べていた。中東情勢は暮らしに大きな影響を及ぼしています。こうした中、アメリカの複数の関係者は、イランとの間で60日間停戦を延長し、核問題に関する協議を行うとする覚書の内容について、両国の協議担当者が暫定的な合意に至ったと明らかにしました。一方、イランのメディアは、最終決定も確定もされていないと伝えています。アメリカのトランプ政権は外交努力を続けていますが、合意が実現するかは依然不透明な状況です。今入ったニュースです。外務省の発表によりますと、先月28日から今月27日までの間に、政府日銀は総額11兆7349億円を投じて市場介入を実施していたことが分かりました。具体的な日付や回数は明らかになっていませんが、先月30日には円買いドル売りの市場介入によって円相場は1ドル160円台後半の円安水準から一気に1ドル155円台まで円高が進みました。他にもこの期間中には急激に円高に触れる場面が複数回ありました。ただ足元では再び円安が進み、現在は1ドル159円台で取引されています。欧盟执行机构欧盟委员会5月28日宣布，源自中国的电商平台飞姆违反了欧盟数字服务法为由，被处处以2亿欧元的罚款。该法规定相关企业有义务对非法商品采取应对措施。欧盟自2024年10月起开展了调查，发现该公司在实体联合评估其平台上销售的非法商品的危险性，以及这些商品对欧盟消费者造成危害方面没有采取相应举措。欧盟还具体指出，平台上流通着不符合基本安全标准的充电器，以及对婴儿来说存在窒息风险的玩具，消费者极有可能购买到非法商品。欧盟已责令飞姆方面在8月28日前提交整改新法。对此，飞姆的发言人发表评论称：“我们不同意欧盟委员会的决定，认为罚款金额过高。此次的决定是基于2024年的情况做出的评估，并未反映当前的情况。”接下来，请收听新闻简介。关于东京都东京23个区地等灾区人士的公寓租金，2026年4月的平均房租超过11万2500日元，较去年4月上涨12.6%，创下历史新高。日本大型汽车信息制造商 Autoback China 与中国的大型汽车制造商奇瑞汽车等宣布达成合作，计划明年在日本市场推出纯电动汽车。届时，汽车的销售和维修将利用 Autoback 的门户网络来进行。此举能否推动外国汽车制造商进入日本市场备受关注。新闻播送完了。
Solutions, making sure that multilateralism takes the center of global governance and inclusivity as well in terms of financial architecture, in terms of making sure that there is respect amongst civilizations and that everybody is included on the table. It's the most important initiative during this time when
President Xi Jinping proposed the Global Governance Initiative at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus meeting in Tianjin last year. The initiative urges countries to collaborate in creating a fairer and more equitable global governance system. Its five principles include respecting sovereign equality, adhering to international rule of law, and practicing multilateralism, advocating the people-centered approach, and focusing on taking tangible actions. Against the backdrop of severe challenges from the current international order, China's presented solutions to improve global governance. Wang Wenjia sat down with City University of Hong Kong scholar Ho Tat King to discuss how China's experiences in urban governance could benefit its people and the world.
How to reform and improve global governance to make it more relevant in multipolar world? That is a consequential question occupying minds everywhere. For China, the people-centered approach is one of the core answers. This is reflected in further optimized governance practices, for example, Beijing's excellent hotline system. How can you think the municipal government services can better and more adequately benefit public?
Focus on people's interests is very important. Foremost, unique about Beijing municipal hotline system, also the Chinese hotline system in general, is that we have put it into a higher horizon. We definitely realize people are focused. We're focusing on what problems and what concerns people have, but we'll add on to that using technological approach, data evidence-based approach to handle the problem, and to clean out the problem, to echo the problem, and to track the problem.
Your article mentioned the Chinese paradigm in regards to urban governance. So how do you interpret Chinese paradigm, and what are your observations here?
The government is doing something for the people to advance their well-being, to solve the problems. Behind the people, they have channels to participate, express their opinion.
What the article says. In 1978, a mathematician by the name of Kurt Gödel died and left behind a very complex theory based on logic. His theories concluded that